Very good. So why don't we just start off with the basic introduction questions. Just would you introduce yourself and say a bit about what your company does and what your story is in terms of the hybrid cloud environment.
So I'll be fast. I'm David Ulevtich. I'm the founder and CEO of OpenDNS. We are a cloud-delivered security service, so we protect devices, employees, and branch offices as they go out to the internet. And I'm a security guy through and through and love talking about security.
And I'm Carson, the founder and the Chief Strategy Officer for Cloud Passage. The basic problem that we solve is as large enterprises adopt private or public or hybrid cloud application delivery environments, we help them deal with the security implications, compliance, and operational implications of that change.
I'm Pravin, Kothari, founder and CEO of Ciphercloud. We are a cloud visibility and data protection company. We help you monitor what's going on in the cloud. We bring the visibility of what's going on about your employee, what they are using in the cloud with the risk scores. And also we protect the data that goes to the cloud.
Very good. So in my introductory comments, I mentioned that hybrid clouds are generally connecting public and private cloud or public cloud and on-premise environments. So many organizations struggle with this question. Which is more secure? Public cloud, private cloud, or on-premise environments, and why?
Sure, so I think there's trade-offs, right? If a company's core business is not to run infrastructure and run a data center, then there's lots of benefits to using a public cloud. There's also tremendous economies of scale, but you're also putting oftentimes all your eggs in one basket, which comes with another set of risks. So I think people need to evaluate what those risks are versus doing their own security versus trusting the infrastructure provider or the cloud provider they're using. And those are trade-offs that people need to think about and articulate and decide where their best efforts are spent.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to think about it. It's really an issue of risk. There's not one that's more secure than the other. The other component to think about there is what your organization has the capability to do on its own. If you have a security organization that's small, I guarantee that Amazon's got way better people doing way more stuff around physical data center security and network security, edge security, things like that. So you can actually gain more security in some situations from using a public cloud provider. There are still things that you have to do, obviously, but it really depends on the capabilities your organization has, the risk, and what you're really trying to achieve with cloud.
Yeah, I agree with Carson. No one size fits all. There are cloud services are great for startup, a lot of security there, but most of the cloud services may not be enough for a bank, right? For example, so it depends on how much risk tolerance or risk-taking ability you have. Based on that, you can decide which cloud is secure enough or not. Also, you have to look at cloud in a different way because there's no way we can say no to the cloud. You have to go to the cloud, and it's a matter of when. And you just have to be aware of the new threat vectors, like account hijacking, like insider in cloud provider side. So it's new threats you have to be aware of and make sure you're addressing them with the new set of cloud security solutions.
Okay, so in the context then of a hybrid cloud where you're connecting two different environments together, I know that Amazon, for example, offers virtual private clouds, which essentially are in the public cloud environment, but they're on the enterprise private network connected typically with a VPN, a virtual private network technology. But when you hear VPNs, people try to use VPN. We've been using VPNs for years, and everybody hates VPNs. So is that really the best way to connect these different environments together is with VPN technology, or is there a better way to do it?
Yeah, I think we deal with that a lot, quite often. That's sort of the sweet spot that we focus on. And the VPN technology, or VPC technology as Amazon calls it, it adds some benefit. In some cases, there are sometimes performance implications that come along with that. But the folks that we see that are really doing cloud in a meaningful way, that sort of real-time connection is less important than horizontal scalability in a true cloud application architecture. So, on the one hand, yes, it helps. On the other hand, really to get the benefit of cloud environments, you need to be more distributed anyway. So the idea of cloud on a stick, which is sort of what we lovingly call VPCs, when you really start to get cloud forward, starts to go away. The other component of security, or the other thing to think about, is there's a lot more to it than just network access control. There's hardening of systems, there's behavior monitoring, there's a ton of security that has to be done on top of just that network access control mechanism.
I would just say, I mean, there are just some fundamental things I think people don't think about when they think about either using multiple clouds at once or just the shift from a proprietary in-house data center to the cloud. I mean, in a traditional data center, you can stick a firewall at the edge of the network, you can stick a intrusion detection device, you can stick like an F5 load balancer. You have all these places to put a bump in the wire, and there is no bump in the wire when you're using Amazon services or Azure, and that really is a fundamentally different model. And so generally you're doing things on the host. You don't want to route traffic through other hosts because it slows things down. And so I think people need to contemplate other security models that are either less performance inhibiting or that are more dynamic.
I think we have to shift our focus from securing the access point only to securing the data. Because once you secure the data, let's say from encryption, then data can go anywhere, right? It can from any device to any cloud to anywhere. So if you can shift that focus, that currently people are looking at access and perimeter to data, it will solve a lot of those problems.
Yeah, a point about putting a bump in the wire, there is no wire. There's no more wire. There's no more physical thing to do. So one of the things that we focus on, and we see the large enterprises that are the most successful with doing security well in a public cloud environment or a hybrid cloud environment, is they try to move the security controls closer to the applications and data. They focus less on the infrastructure, they focus more on the applications and the data, and that that naturally gives scale to the security as well. So as you expand horizontally that cloud environment, the security sort of expands along with it. It's a good strategy.
So this brings up an interesting point that it's important for people to understand, and that is that encryption technologies can be used in different ways. You can focus on channel encryption, so VPNs or say SSL are examples of securing the whole channel, so it's sort of all or nothing. Or you can focus on data encryption where you're securing your data themselves, but that doesn't solve every problem either, right? Because now you have to go through the encryption decryption steps, which can be processor intensive. You have to manage your keys and rotate your keys, and that can be a big hassle, right? And the recipient obviously has to be able to decrypt the message, right? Or they can't use it. So you have to manage your endpoint decryption technology. So and fundamentally, a data encryption focuses on confidentiality but doesn't solve other issues. So has encryption sort of run its course? Or is there more to it than that? Are we missing something here?
Yeah, definitely. I think you are right, because typical traditional encryption that people are aware of is private key, public key, point-to-point encryption. You send email to another side. Both sides has to have right key, right? In case of cloud, you can simplify the problem. You can say that I just want anything that goes out of this enterprise network should be encrypted with one set of key for the enterprise. That we can rotate and do all the security around the key. So it's not really a huge problem. We're dealing with cloud providers and an enterprise side. So for example, Ciphercloud provides real-time encryption gateway that will do real-time encryption and also preserve the application like searching, sorting, reporting on the data as well. So for example, one of the customers we have is mortgage bank, a large mortgage bank in the US. They wanted to go to the cloud because of regulations. Regulators said, you got to launch this portal for your mortgage subscriber within 3 months. And in 3 months, the estimate for developing the application was 2 years, right? But they went to cloud and they were able to deliver that in 3 months. But for a bank, cannot send your mortgage information to the cloud provider that easily. They have many different regulations. So what they did, they deployed this cloud encryption gateway. So as the information goes from enterprise to the cloud, they do encryption, decryption, while preserving entire usability.
And the encryption components that, encryption happens at different levels. Ciphercloud has this great model that we've known each other for quite a while. There's also encryption that happens in the infrastructure. There's encryption that happens, using VPCs, things like that. The reason that encryption is so hot and it's important and it's such a kind of a catchphrase for people, and it's a key area they think about, is if a company can implement encryption and retain their own keys, that solves the problem that people worry about. Is the NSA going to monitor my stuff? Is someone going to make Microsoft Azure or make Amazon or whoever, disclose information and I don't even know about it? So the idea that I can encrypt something, hand it to you, you post it, I keep the key, protects against that. And that's one of the reasons that you constantly hear encryption, encryption, encryption. So it's definitely, it's a very important control. The trick is to make it easy to use. And that's been the problem to date with the industry, is it hasn't been easy to use.
Yeah, I think people need to understand who their adversary is and what their threat profile is. So if you're worried about the NSA, then you might want to prevent eavesdropping, so you would encrypt the channel, as you mentioned. But I think also if you're just worried about this idea of sort of shared fate, so like take GitHub for example. GitHub has all kinds of authentication on the front end, but if a hacker compromises the authentication, all the source code for all the repositories is in plain text on their servers, and the idea is that if you get access to one of those repos, you may get access to all the rest. And that's the idea of why you would want to encrypt the data at rest and have it with separate keys for separate organizations. And those things are frankly very difficult problems to solve. There are proprietary mechanisms that deal with it, but there are no good standards-based ways to deal with them. And those are threats that many companies may not want to put their proprietary source code in someone else's public service. And those are challenges that are being addressed in different ways, but you have to decide if that's the threat you care about or not.
So you mentioned adversaries. This is an important point, right? That you can buy all the tools in the world, you can install them, you can set them up, but you'll still have blind spots, right? Tools alone don't give you perfect security. There's no such thing as perfect security. So for the enterprises in the audience who are saying, well, it's great to have a bunch of tools, but I still have holes. Well, what should they do in order to essentially fill those tool blind spots and come up with an appropriate approach for dealing with the adversaries, the bad guys?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to have perfect protection, right? So you want to be able to figure out, what does it look like when I've been breached? What does a normal sort of traffic pattern look like? What does a normal day of file access look like? You can look at all kinds of metrics in your systems. Whether or not you need to be an expert there or not, I think is to be determined. My guess is that companies like GitHub and Salesforce and Workday and Dropbox and Box are much better at looking for those signals and saying, hey, there's a weird login from Kazakhstan and none of your employees are in Kazakhstan and your mobile phone's geolocation's in San Francisco. That's really weird. They should be doing those kinds of monitoring and alerting and looking for anomalies, but you have to be able to look at traffic patterns and things, not just focus on prevention, and also look for exfiltration or anomalous access.
Yeah, and sort of, jumping off from the point of just don't focus on prevention or reaction, we focus a lot on automation. So every enterprise in this room has limited security personnel. They shouldn't be spending their time turning dials and pulling knobs on system configurations and things like that. That's what we focus on, is automating all that away. So if we can automate away 80% of the fundamentals, the fundamentals become consistent. They're getting done. They're being done uniformly across everything, and it takes a ton of work so that people can focus on the higher value things like what does this signal actually mean. So we sort of jokingly say automate or die, which is a very big focus area for us.
I think, cloud is growing at a very fast pace. There are a lot of security issues, right? New set of threats, which you did not think about earlier. Now your information is all over in the cloud in hundreds of applications, right? So how do you deal with that? So I think one of the things companies should look at is that how do you look at the defense at depth and look at the data, look at the application, make sure they are secure, not only the access point, right? Another thing is also be aware that this is cat and mouse game going on, right? Hackers are becoming more and more organized. There are state-controlled crime, state-sponsored crime, there are organized crime, there is activists, all targeting you. It's very easy to target for them. It's very hard to defend. So you have to make sure that you are fully protected. At the same time, you cannot say no to cloud services. You've got to say yes, enable the cloud service, because that's the way the world is going, and that's the way business wants. So it's a good balance. Say yes to the cloud and make sure you are deploying all the right cloud services, and some of them are sitting here. But there are a lot of innovation going on in cloud security. It's a new frontier.
Yeah, so this brings up an important point. All of the public cloud environments, whether it's Amazon, Azure, SoftLayer, they provide a full range of automated security tooling. But it's up to the customer to know how to use it properly. And there's always these horror stories of people who put secure files in Amazon S3 and they're just on the open internet. And it's not that S3 is insecure, it's that people just forgot to turn security on. And it's not Amazon's fault, they provided the tools. So just saying, oh, we automate that away, it still doesn't really answer the problem because we still have this human component. So, I mean, how do we fill that gap?
It's a good question. And so they do offer a full range of capabilities in some cases. One of the key things for enterprises who are thinking about public cloud adoption in particular should take away and think about is something called the shared responsibility model. Amazon sort of invented this, some years ago, and they essentially say, we're going to deal with security up to a certain level, right? So just like an apartment building, the landlord is going to deal with the common areas and so forth. But once they hand you the key to that door, right, whatever happens behind that door is up to you. So you're exactly right. You can't simply say the cloud provider does it. There are still things that you have to do inside your virtual machines, inside your workloads, your instances to make security work. Again, one of the things that is great about security appliances, the bump in the wire model, is those things are just there. If you've got a bump in the wire firewall device, everything behind it is ostensibly protected, so it's easy. We've got to get that same level of ease in getting security deployed in these cloud environments. Security should be built directly into the images. You shouldn't have to a developer who wants to spin up systems to write code shouldn't have to think about security, right? So the entire stack, up and down, the entire security stack needs to be built into the environment, needs to be baked in, which we've said for years, let's build it in, not bake it on. We actually look at cloud infrastructure transformation as an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I think there is a misconception in the market about what cloud providers provide. Many customers think that it is cloud providers' problem to secure all their information, right? And they have no liability. And they can actually transfer all the responsibility to the cloud provider. But that's not the case. Hardly any cloud provider will take any liability of security breach. So if your information is lost, stolen, this is your problem, Mr. Customer. This cloud provider will not be responsible for that, which is unfortunate. But that's the way the business is done. So customers have to be aware of that legal issue, compliance issues, and make sure they are putting enough security on their side so that if something goes wrong, they have full control. For example, I talked about encryption could be one possible solution to protect all your information before it goes to the cloud. So that way you have full control even if information is gone out.
So people use cloud. Nobody uses cloud for security. People use cloud because it's faster to deploy and develop. They use cloud because the economics are just, when you think about the cost of running cloud versus building out, running, and operating your own infrastructure, cloud will win every time. Like, nobody picks cloud because it's more secure. They pick it for all these other reasons. And then the question is, well, how do you add a layer of confidence? How do you make it feel more secure? And one of the things, I spend about half my time on the road with customers, and one of these false premises I come up against is that customers will say, well, in my own data center, I could put in all these bumps in the wire. I could do all these things to make it more secure. But the reality is they actually don't do those things. And so therefore, it's actually not, even though it's hypothetically it could be more secure, it's not actually more secure. So then the question is, if they're going to use cloud, and the cloud is this unstoppable force, and 2 or 3 years ago, CIOs would have said, there's no way I'll use the cloud. And now today, there's no CIO in the world that would say that they're not going to use the cloud because it's just unavoidable. The question is then, how do you secure it? And I think that you have to weigh those trade-offs of user experience and performance against the risks, right? People use Dropbox and Box because it's just easy. And they choose it because they want to, and they didn't use it because of security. And I'm not sure that you'll ever make the case of that cloud the security argument is there. It's going to be a few more years before you can make the case that it's more secure to use the public clouds today without a lot of effort and using services that are coming up in the ecosystems.
Yeah, that's really true. We probably spend time on the road with a lot of the same people. And the security teams are really getting dragged behind the train. For a while they could stand in front of it. but it got too big and too compelling, for the reasons that David mentioned. But the security folks are trying to catch up at this point, so it will be a while before they can actually, call security call cloud a security win, if you will.
Knowing what you're supposed to do and actually doing it are two different things. As they say, birth control doesn't work in the drawer, right? What can you do? So we have about 5 minutes left, so let's talk a bit about the compliance angle. I mean, if you've mentioned compliance, of course, compliance is a broader challenge than security, because often compliance focuses on other issues as well as auditing and other legal aspects. So what do organizations have to think about when they're focusing on security, but also have to think about, say, HIPAA compliance, PCI compliance, Sarbanes-Oxley, or other regulations?
I think compliance definitely is a very big issue in cloud provider side, because every organization has to worry about their own HIPAA or PCI or GLBA compliance to protect their client data or healthcare data or financial data of the customer. So the issues are like data is going out of an enterprise, and now your auditor has to audit you and also audit the cloud provider. Right? That's a huge cost on that side. So to make sure that cloud providers have some basic compliance reports available to you. But there are also issues like data is going out of the country. That is an issue in a lot of geographics. That from Germany or from Switzerland or from many European countries, Japan, Australia, very hard to send data out of the country. But all the cloud applications are sitting in the, 85% are sitting in the US. So it's very hard for them to adopt those clouds. Same thing, many regulations say that you cannot use multi-tenant systems. So that's another hurdle there. And also, because of what happened with Snowden and NSA revelations, this concern has become very big concern now globally. So I think you have to make sure that if you are using a cloud, your compliance is maintained by more, and half the work is on your side.
Yeah, the data residency and data sovereignty is a big issue. That's a new issue that cloud created, because these things aren't bolted to the wall. You can move servers even if you don't move the data, right? If you have an application server that you move to the EU, or let's say you move it from the EU to the US, it's accessing data that's in the EU. You've got a data sovereignty problem. One of our customers, about a year ago asked us to build a solution around that. And this is the kind of thinking that people need to start to wrap into their compliance discussion. We built a key management system that the keys are actually geo-locked. So you can only use this encryption key in the right geolocation. And if it's not in the right geolocation, the key doesn't even get delivered to the system that needs it. So you can use encryption to make sure that data's, even though it may be in the wrong place, it's useless. So essentially it doesn't pass. But the other component is companies need to start thinking like cloud providers themselves. So every provider out there, you guys both sell SaaS solutions. If you don't have the right compliance components in place, you're not going to sell your wares, which makes compliance a feature, not an insurance policy or whatever. That can really change the game, and it helps on the budgeting side quite a bit, to be honest.
Yeah, I think actually one of the great promises of cloud is actually around the compliance issue. The idea of putting all your data in one place and being able to not attach files everywhere and actually have people come and have a link to your file that's in some place that you control makes it much easier to do auditing, to do compliance, to do authentication. And I think we're getting there. When you look at some of the services around the cloud app visibility vendors, the folks that give you full detailed reporting of when links to files are being shared, the full audit trail of who's accessing what files, who's modifying what files. The cloud actually enables those things, and in many ways should make the lives of the big four auditors and the compliance officers and the CROs lives much easier. I'm not sure if we're there yet from a software standpoint, but at least the vision of what's possible, and certainly a great opportunity for entrepreneurs is to actually solve those problems and actually make compliance one of the compelling motivations for adopting cloud services.
Very good. Well, we have about a minute left, so about 20 seconds each, some final words. Why don't we start over here? Final words, 20 seconds.
I think data visibility cloud visibility and data protection is must for any cloud adoption. It is going to enable your journey in the cloud safely.
Enterprises that are thinking about public cloud adoption or hybrid cloud adoption, two things to really think through very, very hard and do up front. Build a framework for what that environment's going to look like and who's going to own what component. There are some frameworks out there that can help you do that. The second thing is know what your provider is going to do for you and know what you have to do. Those are probably the two key upfront things.
Yeah, I think we're in an era where cloud is inevitable. All of you, all the entrepreneurs out in the showcase area are using public cloud services to host their infrastructure, and there's a reason. I think it's important that they think about the security concerns and what happens if all their data is exposed. What does it mean? What's the risk? And then what do they want to do about it? And who are they going to look to for help?
And I would say that there's no such thing as perfect security, which is just another way of saying that perfect security is infinitely expensive. So any organization has to balance the risks that they're facing with the cost of mitigating those risks and achieve the appropriate balance with the realization that there will always be risks and security is never perfect. So thank you very much to the panel. Let's hear it for the panel. Good job, gentlemen. Thank you.